In this episode, we're summarizing the second episode from Season 3 of the Wire series titled All Due Respect. The episode first aired on September 26, 2004. In the beginning, we start off with the Major Crimes Unit. Detective Jimmy McNulty goes to see Randall Frazier, the guy who checks out the dead bodies at the morgue. McNulty hears that D'Angelo Barksdale died in jail, but he does not believe it was a suicide like the official report says. He asks Frazier to look into the medical records. Later, while having some drinks with his buddy Bunk, McNulty gripes that the state police messed up the investigation. Bunk agrees, thinking it's unlikely that a black guy would hang himself in jail. McNulty jokes about it and says that even though he is an African-American guy with lots of problems, he's not thinking about suicide himself. Then, Bunk helps McNulty use a little trick to pick up a woman at the bar. Later, McNulty goes back to the morgue and Frazier tells him that D'Angelo might have been murdered instead. There were some weird marks around his neck and a strange bruise on his back. McNulty also visits D'Angelo's ex-girlfriend Donnette to ask her about his death, but she's not helpful. McNulty leaves his contact info and departs. On the east side, Cheese goes to an illegal dogfight with one of his crew members named Tree. He boldly bets a lot of money on his dog named Dog. Dog fights another dog owned by a guy named Daz. And Daz's guy, Jelly, trains the other dog. Cheese's dog loses quickly, but instead of getting medical attention for his dog, Cheese is so embarrassed he ends up shooting it instead. Tree thinks something fishy is going on. Right after that, Tree shoots Jelly in the head while Jelly is with his guys on the street corner. The guys who work for Jelly run away and tell Daz about the shooting. The police team hears some talk about Tree's crimes on the wire. Soon after, they learn that another drug dealer named Peanut has been killed as well. Cheese talks on the phone about shooting his dog, but the detectives think he's actually discussing the murder of a human being. They are a bit surprised at this because Cheese usually does not talk openly about the illegal activities he is involved in, especially over a phone. One of the detectives, Lester Freeman, calls the homicide department to find out how many new murders happened on the east side. But Ed Norris from Homicide does not have time for him and ends up hanging up the phone without answering. Freeman sends Kima Greggs home and ends up going to the homicide division to gather more information himself. Later on, the team meets with ASA Rhonda Perlman over lunch to talk about the murders they heard about. Lieutenant Cedric Daniels wants to arrest people only if the team has the needed evidence. McNulty says they should wait and collect more evidence to catch Stringer Bell, especially since he does not want to spook Stringer away into hiding or shutting down operations. But the rest of the team thinks they should act now because of the supposed murders. Officer Massey follows Cheese's gang, planning to attack Daz, starting at Tree's girlfriend's Nisi's place. When they are all set to attack, the team rushes in to arrest Cheese's crew. Moreland ends up questioning Cheese. Bunk repeats Cheese's words from the wiretap, but even starts making fun of Cheese until he starts crying himself. Colonel Forster and Daniels watch from outside the room. Deputy Commissioner William Rawls and Major Marvin Taylor are impressed by the work of the detectives and they leave. However, in the interrogation room, we see McNulty and Bunk finally realize that Dog is not a person after all, but is in fact a dog. Daniels is disappointed that the only charges they can bring against Cheese are for discharging a firearm and mistreating an animal. The team goes to a bar to cope, and McNulty tries to convince Perlman to leave with him, but she makes a move on Daniels instead. The next day, their wiretaps are no longer working. Remember, I am summarizing this entire series, as well as other popular works of literature, movies, and TV shows as well. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next episode or series. If you would like to see the playlists of our summaries, click on the link in the description. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter for additional content. Click like on the video if you found it valuable, because that helps YouTube recommend it to viewers like you. Consider supporting us on Patreon if you can. Doing this will help my channel out tremendously. I really thank you for your support. As we catch up with the Western District, Herc and Carver drive around surveilling their area. They notice Pooh is now on a new corner since the old one is gone after the towers were demolished. So the detectives pick him up and they ask him how is it that he is all of a sudden able to sell on the west side without any trouble from other west side dealers. Pooh of course refuses to answer any of their questions. Meanwhile, Major Colvin hears that his officers are changing the reported crimes they are receiving as a way of lowering their district's felony rates. This is itself done to benefit the politicians. Officer Berman seems to be exceptionally good at reducing the charges, but Colvin does not seem impressed, and he understands this is just a way of juking the stats, quote unquote, which is basically a short-term tactic to display better crime rate numbers, but not actually reduce crime itself, a tactic used even today in our present day. Major Colvin goes to talk to his friend, the deacon, for some coffee. He tells him that he's at a point where a good night's work for him is every day something bad not happening. He is sick of living that way, and he wants to change that before he retires. The next day, Colvin tells his team that they have to stop working undercover on drug cases. He compares the ongoing drug prohibition to the alcohol prohibition of the 1920s and mentions how paper bags were used to bag alcohol, and that helped during alcohol prohibition. He wishes there was a similar solution for drugs, where police can actually do police work rather than drug arrests and confiscation. As we catch up with the Barksdale crew, Shamrock and Country are busy accepting their resupply of drugs when suddenly they are robbed by Omar Little and his crew yet again. We then see Stringer Bell go to visit Avon in prison. They end up talking about the demolition of the towers. Avon, of course, advises Stringer to hold on to whatever territory they have and to expand while they still can. Stringer counters by suggesting a peaceful way to do business. He reminds Avon that the violence is what led them to getting caught in the first place by the detectives. Bodie and Shamrock are both tasked with finding a new supplier. When Bodie goes off to find Marlo, he is unable to find him, and so he decides to gather his crew and stand on one of the corners where Marlo's crew members sell on until he can speak to Marlo himself. One of Marlo's underlings sees Bodie is not leaving, and so he calls up Marlo to see how he should handle the situation. Marlo then drives over to Fruit and tells him to continue working and ignore Bodie. Marlo is a bit thrown off by this, as he knows Bodie is a Barksdale crew member. Marlo then heads over to Vincent, a mentor of his. He asks Vincent for advice on the issues he is having with the Barksdale people. Vincent suggests to Marlo that if he is not willing to come to an agreement or a compromise, he has no choice but prepare himself for war. Marlo then tells Bodie that him and his crew need to leave before things start to get ugly. As we catch up with the politicians who always want what is best for their community, Councilman Tommy Carcetti goes to see Major Stanislaus Valchek to talk about his plan to pressure Acting Commissioner Burrell by using a subcommittee. Valchek thinks it's a good idea because it's a win-win situation for him. If Burrell gives in, he has a friend in the mayor's office, and if not, he gains political points for pressuring Burrell on high crime rates. Valchek arranges a meeting between Carcetti and Burrell where Carcetti expresses his frustration with being ignored. At their next ComStat meeting, Rawls criticizes Major Taylor, the commander of the Eastern District, for doing a bad job. Taylor's district only made 16 felony arrests and did not take any handguns off the street in a month. Meanwhile, there were 4 homicides in just 5 hours, and they have not made much progress in solving them, including the murders of James Taylor, aka Jelly, and Tree. Rawls gives Taylor 8 hours to improve things, or he will be removed from his position. Burrell has dinner with Carcetti and expresses gratitude for helping with police vehicle repairs. Burrell mentions that he has 70 officers retiring, and the mayor has not provided the money promised for training new officers. Carcetti offers to investigate the issue. That was episode number 27, titled All Due Respect. To watch the next or previous episode summary, click on the link in the description or at the end of this video. In the description, you will also find additional links for supporting our channel. I'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye. We upload new videos every week, so subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the like button as well. Click the notification bell to be notified of when we upload these videos. See you on the next episode of Culture Screen.